more like what the normal individual feels about healthcare. Health security today is a very critical component of national security, because unless we have citizens in good shape, I think we will not be able to move forward economically or politically. So that is where I think healthcare becomes a very critical component of national security. And you as microbiologists have the real micro role to play. The doctors, of course, do the macro role, but you have the micro role. And unless you are able to say what exactly is afflicting a particular person, the treatment becomes very difficult. And that is where I think the role of a microbiologist has undergone a sea change over the years. Gone are the days when in the past we thought that this is a man who was just going to see something under the slide and give a view as a technician or something. It is no longer the case. You are now part and parcel of the healthcare system. I think in fact the medical fraternity depends very much on your capabilities and what you are able to deliver. It is now, your role is not just detection but also prevention. I think you have a role to prevent, diagnose and control infections. It's a 3-in-1 role that you have to play, which means you have to keep your knowledge constantly updated and you must be able to prevent various ailments. Because from time to time we keep getting various diseases, infectious diseases, and every time something hits us we come up with a new name. That is all that is happening, unfortunately. We are not able to anticipate and say how do we fight this, and is there any new virus which is there in the air which is going to hit us, and every time something comes thereafter we wake up and see how exactly can we do. But what exactly are our concerns as a common man? And what happens is when somebody gets ill, we normally rush him to a hospital hoping that he is going to come back well, treated and going to come back well. But I am sorry to make this comment, though it is not a very sweeping statement that I would like to make. Many times we find that probably the patient when he goes in is better off than the patient when he comes out. He probably comes back with a hospital affected infection. I do not know how are we going to fight this menace. How are we going to keep our hospitals free from infection? This is a challenge which, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to pose to you. Because all of you are medical practitioners, we have Dr. Narasimhan of the NIMS, we have other very distinguished doctors also here. So I think one of the most important things for you is how do we fight hospital-acquired infection? Today that I think is the biggest challenge, because our numbers are large. I quite appreciate our numbers are very large. We cannot help it, our population is large. So we will have to treat, willy-nilly we will have to treat people. And I for one feel that we need to strengthen the government system. While the corporate hospitals have a role to play in terms of super specialties probably, but I don't see any reason why government institutions cannot play this role. One of the major complaints that normally comes to a common man about going into a government hospital is, first is the cleanliness part of it, the hygiene part of it. Everybody is worried about the hygiene part of it, and he feels that even entry into hospital gets him a feeling of sickness. How do we avert this? Do we or do we not have a role to play in this, in the whole this thing, in keeping the hospital clean and see that he does not acquire an infection? In fact, the other day I was talking to somebody in respect of a patient who was in the ICU for a very long time, and the family members were getting very concerned, and they said, how long is he going to be in the ICU where we don't get to see the patient? So I rang up the doctors and said, look, he's already been in the ICU for about 12-13 days. When is he going to come out? And the reply given to me is, sir, we will not keep the patient for 1 hour longer than what is necessary in the ICU, because we are also afraid of his catching an infection in the ICU itself. It came as a shocking statement to me as a common man, because one thought the ICU was supposed to be the most clean, sterile area in a hospital. I mean, this is the intensive care unit. But if the intensive care unit itself, you are going to be worried that there is going to be an infection and that you cannot keep a patient longer than required in an ICU, what do we do? And what is the sense of confidence or comfort that a common man is going to get if this is the state in which we are going to prescribe? The next issue that I would like to raise before you people is the antibiotic that are prescribed. Most times what happens is, of course, I would take the blame first on myself, that when we go to a doctor, we ask him, please give us some antibiotics so that we are able to get a quick relief from the cold or the cough or whatever it is. And the doctors readily agree. I think this practice should stop. I don't think it should be a patient-dictated medication. It should be a doctor-prescribed medication. This whole this thing has to stop. Probably I will have to myself change my own mindset on this, because I also do the same mistake. When I go to a doctor, sometimes I tell him, instead of, when he says, why don't you start with some very sort of very normal treatment. I mean, Dr. Narasimhan, for example, is one of those who goes in for a very sober treatment to start with. And I, for one, prefer that I want something very radical and something very fast, because time is the essence of the whole this thing. And so, how do we really prevent this sort of an antibiotic being given for everything? Because the more antibiotics that you pump into a patient, the less his resistance is going to get lesser and lesser. There again, the other problem is there a misuse, an abuse, or an inappropriate antibiotic which is given to patients? All these three do happen all the time. That is misuse, when I said that readily you are able to give an antibiotic for anything without knowing whether the antibiotic is going to react or not react. Because I am told that each virus reacts to a particular antibiotic. It is not that it is a general thing that automatically you are going to react to an antibiotic. So do we prescribe antibiotic as a matter of course? Is there an overuse of antibiotics sometimes? Is there an abuse of antibiotics? And is there an inappropriate use of antibiotics?